Dear people, we start the talk. Yeah, so thank you again for the Patricia. Thank you. We have now a talk with all the world's artists from the MODINA program, and we have the pleasure that Ivana and Charlotte, who are both working with and for the university here, Levy, will moderate this talk. It's on dancing in the digital age. There's a subtitle which I forgot. But I'm sure you can mention that.
dancing in the digital age and the intersections. This was the tradition. No, that was the title. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. It's better to say thank you for staying. It's quite late. Thank you also, Sarah and John, for joining us right after your performance. You're probably hungry and tired and everything, so take your time. And congratulations also on your show. Thank you also to all the MODINA artists for coming today. That was, it's late, but it's the only possible time that we could gather you at one place in those 2 days that you're here, and we really wanted to involve you all in this conversation. So I would like to give a short introduction of the participants. Again, maybe starting with Sarah and John. Fdili Alaoui is a dance artist and choreographer, but also a professor in human-computer interaction and interaction design. And John Sullivan is an interaction designer, researcher also in HCI, and a musician on top of it, or in base of it. Yeah. Sarah and John are both based in Paris. I moved to London. Okay, so I was not updated. Then we have Grigore Burloiu. Okay. Grigore is a creative technologist, teaches creative coding, interactive music system, and game development in Bucharest in Romania. And I would then continue with Simona Deaconescu, a choreographer and filmmaker, also from Bucharest, Romania. Grigore and Simona have together developed a piece, Collective Cadence, that you will be able to see tomorrow at 8 p.m. at the small stage, so you're also invited to come again. Then we have Levy on my left side, a choreographer and multidisciplinary artist. Okay. Based in Frankfurt. Okay, yes, that's right. His MODINA partner, so to say. Célia Bétourné, a digital artist with background in real-time interaction and experience design, based in Marseille, France. Célia and Max have also been working together in MODINA project, and they developed an installation called Temporal Spaces, which was running today and that will run also tomorrow from 4 to 8 p.m. So, all of those 3 works, and also 2 works in addition from the artists that are not here today, have been developed in the framework of MODINA project, of MODINA artist residencies, which are co-funded by Creative Europe program of the European Union. And maybe just a little bit context about the MODINA project. That's short for Movement, Digital Intelligence and Audience Interaction, and it's a big European project that gathers 8 partners from 6 countries. And it focuses on expanding the creative possibilities for contemporary dance performances and augmenting the experience for the audience by using digital technology and focusing especially on AI and audience interaction. So with this, I'm done with the formalities, with how and why we are here today, and I want to switch on what to talk about. So through our work on this project, but also many other projects that kind of combine art and technology, and when I say we, I mean now Charlotte, my colleague, who is also a dancer and a choreographer, and I have also also accompanied various tech-based art projects as project manager. We frequently engage in discussions that arise precisely out of this constellation, because of this constellation. So from this fusion of art and technology, or in this case, dance and technology. So basically the topic that we want to discuss with you today is the process and the experience of interdisciplinary collaboration in the context of dance and technology, of course, based on MODINA project, but not only MODINA project, because all of you have quite a rich background and worked also on other projects that are involving dance and technology. It's also, I think, important to say that MODINA is focus, or it's bringing together always two artists, two creatives in a residency, and those two creatives are bringing in the skills from both areas. So dance and choreography on one side and creative technology on the other. So I think you are the best possible conversation partners when it comes to this topic.
Well, thank you, Ivana, for this very beautiful introduction. And we are super excited to meet here because I think it's very rare that we have such a huge amount of experts here on a panel. So this is really, really cool. I am personally very thrilled to get to know a little bit more about your creation process and also about your experiences with the transfer of expertise from one genre to the other, as those sometimes have very rigid boundaries, as we know ourselves. So I'm very, very excited that we get to have about an hour or whatever we want to have to share a little bit of our experience there. Tonight we are doing our best to provide bridging, to find different approaches, and also maybe get to exchange a little bit altogether. So the first question that we wanted to address is, if you're thinking about traveling to your first, all of you, to your first art and or dance and tech project, what comes to your mind? What do you remember?
For the first one?
The first.
What I remember from the first one, there have been so many firsts, but yeah, I remember perhaps struggling a little bit to make things work. Let me just remember the specific project. I think it was kind of a big installation with a dancer inside of a cube, and there was kind of like particle systems all around her, so she was like dancing and triggering sound at the same time. And yeah, I think it was complex and complicated systems that were somehow perhaps too hard to perform with. Those were my first experiments.
So question to you would be, has that changed?
In my case, I try hard to change it, to make things that actually are simpler, but that are performable, more performable. And I think in this piece we tried very much to go to the core of the idea and and just simplify it as much as possible so that it's robust enough that we can really start creating with it. So yeah, the more I grow old, the more I give up complexity.
I wasn't expecting such a deep and profound answer, but I love that. I think we will be circling back to this answer later.
Someone else maybe? You don't have to go into details. It's maybe a sentence or a word, an association on the first experience.
My first experience mixing the disciplines, so to speak, was actually also with when I was first working with Célia. It was not their first experience mixing, but it was my first experience, and it was a dance film that was mixing like footage generated through digital means, to put it very broadly, and traditional dance film, so to speak, of analog, actually just performers being captured on camera in a set space. And I edited the two kind of forms of footage together to make something that would blend between the two. And looking back on that film, I was very hesitant to let go of what I was familiar with as dance to use just more digital footage. I felt somehow necessary to stay with what I knew in dance, and I would have gone back and changed that, I think, if I really did now. And I think now especially with this project, I had to let go of it because there was no such thing as traditional footage, so to speak. So for me, I guess I have let go of it in a sense because there's a time and place for certain things, and perhaps that has been kind of my lesson to know what is useful when, instead of thinking, okay, I need to always have this because this is my marker or what I care about or my artistic identity, so to speak.
We can continue with another question if you don't feel inspired. So when it comes to the interconnectedness of the artistic and technological elements in your work, how does that function? How do you feel about it? Is there always a certain tension, or do you feel that they kind of those two elements fit together well? I mean, I know that also some of you wear both hats at the same time, so we cannot always talk about this polarization between two people. It's sometimes maybe also within you. It's called schizophrenia. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And I can sort of answer your first question too. So working in dance and technology is relatively new for me. My career was initially as a musician and then a music technology researcher, and I worked a lot with music performance and movement and technology, and that sort of bridged me over into dance. And I did, in the course of that, a few different types of projects with like music and movement and dance together. And so what strikes, I'm going to your first question now, as a way to start the second one, what struck me about those early projects is it really felt like very much more of a technical demonstration, and hopefully over time and with a bit more experience, it becomes less about using the technology and, you know, that being such a focus. And I guess this tries to start to answer your second question. Because I do sort of both back and forth, you know, dance necessarily, but I do the music part of it and a lot of the technology part of it. And so it starts to, really does kind of just run together. Some of the parts that, especially in our piece, that you don't see is all of the behind the scenes stuff to take these old archive videos, to extract motion data, to do something interesting with that, extract features. Leo has also worked a lot on this whole process. It's an incredibly, fairly boring, very technical process to get to it, but at the end of the day, it's also a very artistic process, because there's a lot of ways that you can interpret the data in different ways, or do different things, and make decisions. So I think, to me, that at a certain point, it starts to really run together, or at least I hope it does. And if I get stuck where it's not running together, then I'm probably needing to rethink something that I'm doing maybe a little bit, because, yeah.
Yeah, and I think in the case of John and I, we kind of have both hats anyways. Both of us are researchers in interaction, and computer interaction, and also like musicians or dancer. And so we both already like have experience with technology and know what to expect from it. Also, we know, like, we share a common language in that sense. That there isn't that tension that, you know, the dancers has this kind of expectation and the technology has this kind of expectation, they have a hard time communicating. In our case, it's not necessarily the case because we're both in between or across both domains. So that's kind of that kind of specific case. It creates less tension in that sense. But we both were in quite agreement from the beginning, no matter how much tech we developed for the piece, it stayed, and that's what Stefan said for the beginning, as a scaffolding element. We didn't want it to be like in the face of the audience. It wasn't so visible what was like running behind, kind of like it triggering every element that we were performing on stage. And we liked the fact that it stayed a little bit like this, yeah, underneath kind of layer. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna jump right onto that because you're mentioning different languages. So I wonder whether there's a difference between artistic and digital. No, we all know there's a difference between those languages, but my question would be, how would you bridge those languages?
Yeah, in my own lab as a professor, like even when I have grad students that come from computer science, I send them to take dance classes, for example, if they're doing a PhD with me. So that's the way for them, yeah, so I mean, Leo, for example, is doing his PhD with me. He's taking dance classes. I think it's important that everyone understand everyone's craft. And a lot of other people I work with and students who come from, like, let's say design or whatever, they start learning how to code, for example. So I think that for me it's important to understand the craft, and not only understand the craft, like build a common language and understand what the other person's talking, and also build respect for the other person's craft so that we understand what it takes to dance, you know, that it's not just, you know, because you've been doing it forever and it's not. And I've had experience of many contexts in which these hierarchies build up and it becomes kind of a toxic environment where the developer feels like they have a knowledge that others don't have or whatever. And I think that it's very important that, you know, if we're talking about language and tension and hierarchies, etc., that we understand the depth of the hard work that it takes from both sides. And
yeah, I would like to hear maybe opinions from those who don't wear both hats in the team.
Yeah, I think we had a kind of different, process. I worked with technology before, but I think not in the sense that, what we tried to do with this project was a bit more advanced than what I did before, because I was mainly working on, not with database and these kind of things that tend to be like very tough. We'd like to put the database together, and I think we had like these type of tensions, and we ended up putting the tensions in the work. So now practically we built like a discourse around the tensions that we had while working, and we tried to integrate them, in a funny way, of course, in the lecture performance to make it also a bit accessible. I think because we talk a lot in this lecture performance, one of the things that I always felt, I was like, I don't understand what you say. So how can a normal people, when they come and see like there are some terms and there are some type of connection between words, like something is injected into something and things like this, which makes, like Sarah was saying, makes something that is very simple sound very complicated, you know? So I think, for example, for us, this type of language was a bit of, because I didn't understand why we have to, so this for me, art being accessible is very, very important. Even if you do something like us, which kind of documents the process in itself. And another thing we struggled is that I felt at a certain moment that I became like the slave of the technology. technology, but not his slave, like the slave of the technology itself. Because practically I spent from 2 months of my residency, 1 month I spent it putting like papers together, like doing PNG from PDF and like for the 7,000 pages and kind of feeding all this information to the AI, hoping that it would learn and it will be like smarter than I am. And in the end, yeah, it was a bit disappointing because the end result was definitely not matching the level of obsession that I had with those documents. And then I realized, and then our mentors came and they said, like, look, Simona, this is the moment when you have to stop. Like really, you really have to move from this computer, go and dance and do something, but then just go away. So yeah, I think some processes, like our process was not simple. But in the end, what turned out was something at this border, you know, at this liminal space in between something that is finished and unfinished, something that is trained but not trained completely. So and I kind of like this in the end, like having this uncertainty of what you will get on stage. It makes you, you know, like you will have problems for sure, but it kind of puts you in a situation in which you need to think how to solve it with the audience and everything. So, yeah.
But it sounds like in the end you found a very good way of how to communicate between.
Well, I guess you have to come tomorrow and, and see. I don't know what to say.
There's like a running gag in our collaboration, which could be compared to those false friends in different languages, when dancers come to talk about movement quality, and coders are like, yeah, quality, okay, it's good, it's good. Yeah.
Grigore, do you want to say something in your defense?
Yeah, no. I'm coming to the same thing from a different perspective than Simona. And yeah, this is kind of also what she was talking about. A lot of the things that I mean, there's things that we both found very frustrating in building up these systems and these tools. But for me, I wouldn't say it's part of the fun, because it's not fun to, especially to see your partner being frustrated by the stuff that you're building. But it's part of the journey, so to say. So it's an exploration, and this kind of exploratory or this kind of search is something that we built into the couple of systems that we're using. And that's what's interesting to me. And I bring this approach, also to whenever I make music, or whenever whenever I advise students with their artistic projects, is to search and not start from preconceived ideas of result.
I have to say I found the way you kind of resolved also your problems on the stage very interesting.
Yeah, we're constantly resolving them. I don't say they're resolved. Negotiating them.
Should I move on to the next question? So I'm also interested whether when you conceptualize a project, when you're developing an idea, and how much are you or do you feel limited by technology? How much are you freed from it at the beginning, and then it's kind of, and then you bend to it, or the other way around? Does one of those aspects bend to fit the other, or not, or what would be the ideal case, if you understand? It's more like in general. Yeah, I said it also in the other artistic talk, but I have wrote a paper about this. It's called Tension in Integrating Technology in Dance. And it was from a piece where I struggled a lot because I felt like I needed to include a bunch of like different interactions and like heartbeats and breathing sensors and this and that and this and that. And also because I was also a researcher and an artist, I felt like, well, at the end of the day, I have to make a piece, but I also have to write a paper. What if I start like stripping off the piece from technology, then I have nothing to write about in my paper. And so I built so many these systems that I integrated, and none of them was so satisfactory because there was like recognition systems on top of that, and whenever the dancers changed slightly little things in the dance, nothing was working anymore. Anyways, it was a bit of a story of failure more than a story of success, and I ended up at the end of the day writing about that story of failure and everything that came from it, and how I stripped down the system to its bare minimum so that I could actually have a piece at the end of the tour. So back then I was still very attached to this idea of making things work in a specific way, and specifically when you build a piece where the technology is actually part of core and part of the artistic intent itself, not just supporting your artistic idea, right? And I think here we had similar struggles at some point where we were trying to find this AI that will structure us, and at some point we were like, if we just use a shuffler, it might work better at the end of the day. But I feel like we struggled less because we were kind of like less delusional about it, but we maintained, a little bit the obsession of let's try and fit into what we said we were going to do, and make it at the end of the day still not just running a dice and then having something that shuffles your work, but actually something that analyzes something from Trisha and tells us what to do. So we kind of got a little bit like obsessed with that until the end, and I feel like that created a little bit of which was necessary. I mean, you're working for 2 months. You should have a little bit of. But at the end, I feel like it's nice that everyone, tried to stay true to that idea. So very long answer.
How do I phrase that? For now, we have talked about technology as if it would be a passive system, but artificial intelligence is commonly claimed as something intelligent, which we all know is not, but on the other hand, I'm interested in the role that you gave AI in your pieces.
We were having this conversation this morning or something, that while MODINA had a call for AI and audience interaction, it didn't specify, how much of a highlight the AI has to play as a role. And for us, it was like the AI is very under the hood. There's no, the results of the AI are not highlighted as, look, we used AI. So for us, it was really it helped us for body recognition or for pattern matching between the different clips of our archive. And if you haven't been to the installation, we take recordings of each participant, and there's a PNG which we helped write out, and then there's a program that tries to match those PNGs as fast as possible when it has to play back specific clips. And then also for our audio playback, we use Rave, which is an AI-powered neural network learned different sound textures, and we send our music through that again. But at the end of the day, it's not that it's generating something and then we present it as the final product, so to speak. So for us, using it as a tool to support arriving where we'd like to is, and for us, we felt like the right way to use it.
Yeah, well, maybe I'm just adding something to the question, because I'm also interested how much agency you potentially would give in AI. How much power would you give the AI? Would you let an AI destroy your piece? Live?
I think we really use like just before. It was really like we use it in different way, but like an exploration for us, I think, and it was a good occasion to explore and discover maybe how powerful it is. But at the end, it was interesting to explore the limit to the AI, and we discover what the machine system creates, for example, and it was also interesting for us to just see the result.
I think actually in our project there was a phase in the beginning where we were still developing that we could have AI-generated PNGs of movements that didn't happen actually, or recordings that don't exist, which we ended up not using because it was just one of these things, this complexity. I mean, we couldn't implement it in time or make it fit with the frame of the project within the 2 months we had. But that could definitely be given some sort of agency to generate false recordings almost of people that didn't participate or of movements that didn't happen. For me, I don't speak for Célia, but for me, I would, knowing where I'd like to put the limit and then adjust it each time, I would be interested to see how much agency AI could have and it still feel like something I'm wholly participating in instead of giving the responsibility away.
Yeah, that's always like the tension. How much responsibility you're willing to give. And for us, I think the AI was very much tied up with the idea of speculation. Like when we formulated our project, we had some questions. Like Simona had questions about her domain of research, this thing of mass dances from history and their significance. And also the way the MODINA call was framed as audience interaction. So we thought, okay, how can we integrate AI within like getting something from the audience in real time? And what we're doing is we're getting, maybe I shouldn't spoil this, we're gonna ask people to give us some data in real time. And we're gonna, we're not doing it. The AI is doing this. It's driving the show like for a couple of minutes towards one of 4 possible routes. And another point is where I'm or then I'm guiding it along one of those 4 routes. And it's always, you're wanting to give it some room to maneuver, but you're also wanting it to be your thing, right? It's not just whatever algorithm you found or you wrote, or you want to give it some expression, right? And it has to have your human touch. Sometimes kind of nice.
I could add something just about our piece that we sort of came back to a lot, and I think because we're researchers together, we have sort of a common understanding and discussions about these things. So it does, I think, come a little bit from your paper that you mentioned, this idea of sort of stripping away technology if it's working or simplifying the processes. So I feel like a lot of what came up in our piece in particular was balancing conceptual choices versus aesthetic choices, and the aesthetic choices were always the ones that, like, the AI wants us to do that, but that's a bad decision. That's not going to make for a good dance piece. So therefore, this part, we'll pull the AI back a little bit and rein it in. So I think in terms of our piece now, we would keep AI on a very short leash, but it's also entirely context driven, and I'm really interested in working on a new piece that would kind of play it the other way and just sort of intentionally let the AI go wild to see how bad it can destroy the piece. And, you know, thinking of, you know, analog examples of, you know, like tape loops that eventually just, you know, like wear out and turn into chaos and static. What is the AI equivalent of a process?
So maybe opening up this question to not only this project but also projects you have worked in the past. What did working on those interdisciplinary projects teach you about dance? So, yeah.
As a musician, it's, I don't know if it's so relevant to this conversation, but it's something that I find incredibly fascinating in my own sort of work between music and now dance and technology, is seeing the differences between how musicians work and how dancers work. And I think it comes back to, again, that idea of like sharing languages and, you know, and finding the way that we can all communicate together. And, you know, that's to say between music and dance, but also between technology and dance and music and AI. Yeah.
Just a short question on this, because we were also asking ourselves, you were also playing to the cues that you got from the AI, so you were
Yes.
both kind of not improvising completely, but yeah.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you, to what extent do you consider audience experience when you do your works? Because, for example, Sarah, you mentioned earlier, at the end of the day, we could just put it on shuffle and it would be similar, and actually from the audience point of view, they would know the difference. And Max, you were also talking about giving away the responsibility, also how much do you consider audience, especially in your case, because you don't have performers, it's a completely interactive piece. So, yeah, I think the question is actually...
Is it okay if I answer something? To add to this kind of half question you asked before about learning about dance in interaction is you can't reliably map things to people's hands or arms, because some people might enter the installation with their hands in their pockets and then walk around for 2 minutes and wonder why nothing is happening. No, but I think, especially within our installation, the audience has the responsibility. We just have the responsibility of creating a frame where people want to try stuff out, so to speak. I didn't sit today to see how people interacted with it today, but in the past edition, when we premiered it, so to speak, in Tallinn, people had like really different ranges of how they wanted to interact with it, because some people were dancers, so they came and danced in the space. Others were like 6-year-old kids, so they just ran around in circles. And some were older people who were just moving around without sort of formal dance training. And I guess for us, it was the responsibility of at least there being a minimum of clear feedback, no matter what sort of movement someone would input. That was I think for me, because I did the sound design, so to speak, of the project, I felt like, well, even if someone moves a little bit, there has to be clearly something happening. And if someone moves a lot, they should be also, so to speak, rewarded for having moved more, not louder, so to speak, but just like there should be a development difference between moving little and moving big. It was my first time applying something like that, so I don't know if I succeeded, but I think I semi-succeeded in it. But I think that responsibility factor is, I mean, for me, when I was actually watching Sarah's piece just now, I also felt like I had a responsibility because I wanted to know what cue was going to happen, and then wondering what color difference made, or go, or revert back, or free. And then also in the second section, figuring out if this symbol is this movement and why it's is this time, but the next time it's not, or maybe it is, or maybe I misinterpreted, or if it's combined with the other symbols underneath it, I don't know. So there was a lot of audience interaction there, I felt. Yeah, totally. Just trying to guess what the meanings were as I was watching it. So, yeah, I don't know, I think the interaction is dependent on the curiosity of the person entering the space too. Not to assume my responsibility, but...
It's also very much related to the concept of user experience from the technical field as a concept, and that's also a topic that we often discuss about, especially this example that you just gave. To which extent should a reaction to an action be obvious? Because often the artists are the ones who are, at least in my experience, not really insisting on it, or the other way around, that the technologists really like when that's clear because it means that it functions well, right? Otherwise, the effort put in it is somehow not visible, right?
What is the question?
It was just a comment. I don't know if you want to say something about the audience experience.
Yeah,
Did
I
you
think
consider it?
for us it was, I mean, we really wanted to make something that is interactive with the audience, but I think in the end for us was more important that the audience is with us. And sometimes when you insist, on interacting, you kind of create this kind of pressure that it becomes a bit uncomfortable also for the audience. And one of the debates that we had, like if you come to the show, there is the show kind of opens with kind of this interactive moment in which, the audience kind of creates the sounds, and the sounds are the basis of what happens after. So I that come from this performance world, I always say that we have this responsibility. Once we launch this provocation, this challenge to the audience, we need to own it. We need to know, we need to give back, if they give us something, we need to give them back something. And then, of course, Grigore was like, maybe, but we have to see what's going on and how the technology reacts. And I feel that sometimes, and we had another moment that was interactive, that now I'm doing it, in which the audience was communicating with the chatbot. And we tried it in Trafo, and it kind of failed during the show. But it was a lovely moment that it failed, really, because people didn't believe that it was real, that we are actually working with AI, and then they saw that it was real because my computer froze. So, it was a nice moment. But I think sometimes technology can facilitate this. So there are moments in which technology can, like for example in their project, like technology, but there are projects in which I think sometimes technology can actually stop this interaction, because it gives people too much, and so I think finding the right, the right, it doesn't have to be super interactive. Like Max said, it's enough just to kind of challenge you intellectually or emotionally, and for me it's enough. I'm also not very participative as an audience. Like if you start pressing me or pushing me to do certain stuff, I become oh, please just leave me alone for 2 minutes and I will do it in my own time. So I'm kind of not very radical in this sense. I'm trying to keep it very balanced.
actually the audience interaction in terms of like technology mediating that interaction from our piece, because it felt like it was going to be just way too much to handle, to have the AI aspect, all the aesthetics that we were building, you know, the communication between the music and the dance, and then go in and asking the audience to do stuff with technology. It was starting to be, you know, to be Frankenstein, kind of. And so we decided, you know what, let's just get rid of that aspect. And in a way, it was, because a dance pieces always involve audience interaction. I mean, they're coming, they're following you outside when you are doing the AI section, AO section, and then they're following you as you're entering, and then, you know, if they're curious enough, they're gonna start looking around for the cues, so, yeah, if you're like, strictly speaking from like Jacques Rancière's perspective, a performance is always participatory. But of course, in the MODINA call, it was like participation is mediated by technology, so that's like a different level. So at the beginning, when we were like, are we cheating if we take it off? But then, you know, in a way, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Then we'll just focus on one aspect that's the core of the piece. Then that'll be it. And so we decided to do that, and we got away with it. You know? Yeah.
Reflecting on our piece and what you had to say about it, something that, I mean, I don't even know how much we have talked about it just on our team, but sort of like half bothered by the fact that our video screen that we're looking that has, so the idea is basically the score that is projected behind us has the actual information of whatever section that we should be performing at that time. It's really hard to read from the stage because we're not facing it for one, and it's much easier just to have like plain text instructions. So we have like the simple version that we can read, and in a way I feel like, yeah, that should be totally hidden out of sight. The audience should not know that that exists. But then in another way, I really appreciate that it creates some transparency to what the AI is doing, what the technology is actually doing. And it does, I think, start to create this game with the audience. But can I follow? Do I understand?
I think the piece would be a lot less, like, it would become not, we would not be convinced of the patterns if we did that score.
Yeah, you would very quickly probably just assume it's just sort of randomly generated patterns or something. So maybe having that connection between it makes you aware that there's this other process that's going on. Yeah. So yeah, in the end, I side on the fact that I'm glad it's there, but then I feel again it's like these, I don't know, aesthetic decision versus more technical decisions or something. Like my aesthetic musician self says like, no, that should totally be hidden. You know, that's like, you know, the microphone that's hanging on top of the screen or something like that.
I wonder if you were to continue now to do the next project with AI, what would your method be? Would you have a learning, something that you took from this project, from this first research?
For me, I think I already mentioned it, because I think I know what I want to do is play with this idea of just like, instead of constraining the AI, just really let it go, and being a little bit critical of AI, and just just say, okay, ruin the piece for me, and let's do it intentionally. But I don't know, yeah, that's my immediate idea.
I think most of my projects, when considered sequentially, seem to just build off whatever I did the last project. What we did here was based off previous things we had built together in other projects to a previous technology we used. So my future projects is just in my head right now. There's no realism around it, realistic structure around it. Right now, what's in my head does build off of it, some of the things we didn't even use for the project of generating certain things that didn't happen, or I guess maybe to me because like generating things is a big part of why AI people in general public are into it, because you can generate finished products that didn't get made by human hands. For me, that is interesting if there's a counterpoint of something that was made by a person, that you have, I don't know, pieces of sound that were made by a real person, and then based on that data, in the same platform you present what AI would make, so then you have a comparison on the same platform, in which the whole point is to compare these two. So for me, my future projects, I think if I wanted to give AI more agency and have that, if this would be a big part of the role, maybe dictating what happens to the show based on what real things have happened. Hard to describe without getting too specific about my idea, but yes, I would involve all the things I've learned in this project too.
I have a feeling we're tired and it's late, but there is one last question that's kind of connected with this one. What's about your mutual collaborations? Did they brought you closer to each other? Do you want to continue? Do you plan to continue in a way? Or, it's a bit personal, but it's I would like to hear.
This is the first project we do, so
It's the last.
And it was really nice to collaborate, because each time the sub-project we did, we explored new media each time for this moment, so it was really nice because we come from different fields, so we need to fully adapt and communicate, but it was easy to communicate in each different media. We succeed to create something in between and balance between our fields.
Yeah, the last day that we were in Tallinn, after we had our drinks and we were saying goodbye, we were both saying, like, all three of us, it's really easy to work together.
Yeah.
Let's keep working together. Okay.
For us, geographically, things have gotten strange, because we're now in London, Montreal, Paris, Marseille. We have another dancer who's somewhere between Lisbon and Poland. So I think there's some just really practical constraints that maybe will make things a little bit difficult, plus schedules and us being sort of full-time researchers at the same time. But I'm confident that we'll stay in each other's orbits, and there will be other things that come out. I think it's been interesting, maybe especially between the three of us that work in the same lab together, to have a sort of research academic partnership and stuff, and then go over into this other alternate artistic world and work together, which is really fun.
Yeah, definitely, and the whole collaboration was very smooth on a human level. We laughed a lot, and there was a lot of moments of just having fun and dancing and making things loud, etc. So it was very cool. Who knows for future projects? I mean, we don't have those planned for the moment, but we'll stay close academically, at least, for sure.
Grigore and Simona, you're living in the same city, so.
Yeah, no excuse. So if we don't, there must be some problem. I learned a lot, and I think I grew a lot with this project. So it would be cool to do something together again. Maybe first we need to go to therapy.
Mark's counseling.
I think, the same, but just like John, I will be traveling a lot in the next 2 years, and I will be doing projects that have no connection with technology in this sense. yeah, so I would be doing more like socially engaged work and so I don't plan any technology related work in the next 2 years. But for me, this project was raised this question, like as an artist, whether I want to work with technology or not as a choice, not if I can or can't. It's just like if I want and if it's needed, do we really need it? So yeah, because I worked before a lot, so that's why it's like, I think maybe sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it's not necessary, so it did raise this question. If the AI now, we just generated some videos with AI, and they are really trying to be good, like good in the sense, like really mimicking, and it is a question, should we continue to do this, and also the texts, and also the music, and it's like, it is a question of. So for me, seeing what it can do, or like also in a divergent way, like you say, it's divergent, but how divergent it is, in the end. It is a question of when and where like this hierarchy and power structure will change, So yeah. I'm not saying I'm not going to do anything with technology or something like this, but I'm just saying that out of a project that encourages this collaboration, for me, it is a question of whether in 10 years, if I continue to do this, how is the art going to look like?
But in any case, it brought you somewhere further for you personally, so that's good. Okay, I think we're done. Thank you very much for the patience. I think it was a nice talk. We covered all the topics that we wanted to talk. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes. And we'll be back tomorrow. Yeah.
Yes.